Hello everybody, Roger here, and welcome to my channel, Rogers Reads. So today I'm going to do a review of a book that I read recently entitled The Wicker King by Kayla Ancrum. So The Wicker King follows two boys named August and Jack who have been friends since they were little and are really close, almost like brothers. They also both come from neglectful, dysfunctional families. August actually has to sell drugs for money because his sole caretaker, his mother, has pretty much given up on life and is kind of withdrawn into herself. So August needs the money he earns from selling drugs in order to take care of his mom. And Jack's parents, if they're really busy executives, they travel all over the world, leaving him alone for weeks at a time to fend for himself. Sometimes at certain places during the book, it almost seems like they've completely abandoned him. So when the boys were younger, they often created games where Jack played the role of a benevolent king, such as King Arthur, with August playing the faithful champion or knight. So as the novel progresses, we learn that Jack begins experiencing these strange hallucinations from an alternate reality that is blending in with his everyday life. So August becomes aware of this and he realizes that Jack does need some sort of help. But feeling that he owes Jack a life debt, decides instead to stick by Jack's side, to keep the hallucinations a secret, and accept Jack's visions as reality. Now, Jack is confident that once he fulfills a quest that he's on, that is part of this alternate reality, that the hallucinations he's been experiencing will disappear for good and the world will return back to normal. So August plays along, even putting his own life in danger as Jack draws him more and more into this fantasy world, straddling the world between reality and madness. So August willingly follows Jack, although he himself sees no otherworldly elements. So as the novel progresses, Jack and August end up alienating themselves from everyone around them, including their parents, friends, and teachers, as Jack's visions become the primary focus of their existence. So at this point, as a reader, we can't help but wonder whether Jack is actually, in fact, experiencing and is able to see an alternate reality of some kind, as his insistence that what he's seeing is real becomes more and more convincing, both to August and to us as the reader. So as I read along, I couldn't help but wonder whether this book was going to switch from young adult contemporary, which I thought it was going to be, to a young adult fantasy novel. I really liked the fact that I knew absolutely nothing going into this book. So it was a fun journey, as I didn't know where this novel was going to end up taking me. Now, I don't want to get too spoilery here, but I will say that things get a whole hell of a lot worse before they get better. And this book does deal with a lot of intense, hard-hitting subjects, such as child abuse, toxic codependent relationships, as well as mental illness. So what I liked, the prose of the book. I'm really glad that I got the physical copy of this book, as it's cool how the pages are initially white, and as the story begins, but as Jack descends further and further into fantasy, we start getting splotches of black and gray. And they intrude more and more on the page as the story progresses until the pages end up being completely black with white print, which I thought was really a brilliant device and an excellent metaphor for the direction in which this novel was heading and the darkness that was overtaking our characters at this point in the book. Additionally, there are numerous drawings, doodles, photocopies of arrest records, copies of detention slips, newspaper clippings, school suspension forms, medical records, and still frame photographs, all of which aid in telling this story. Let me show you some of them. I think, for instance, we have detention slip here on page 138. 72, I think there was. Let's see, what else do we have here? We have some doodles. I really love, actually, I've found these so much fun. We have a kind of an eerie still photograph here. I think there's one more. I wrote it down, page 102, that I wanted to show. These are all things that Jack sees. So very interesting. Hopefully I'm focusing on that. So, yeah, so I really love this multimedia format. And I'm not sure how this all would translate into an ebook, because that format doesn't always work with a lot of multimedia and images in a book. Now, also, there aren't any full-on chapters. Instead, we get a page or page and a half of snippets from which we piece together the story, along with those multimedia elements. Now, I don't mean to say that the format of this book is confusing, because it's really not. In fact, not only do the snippets of multimedia do a great job of portraying the events in Jack and August's lives, they also succeed in setting the tone of the novel, and I really, really found myself enjoying this type of storytelling. Now, taken together with the short vignettes along with the multimedia, we can easily figure out what's going on as the story unfolds. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that this format is called microfiction. Oh, and it's also worth mentioning that the entire story is told from August's point of view, because no doubt of the two of them, he's the more reliable narrator. Another thing I really liked about this story was that it wasn't just the difficult subjects, the complicated relationships, or the beautifully woven narrative that made this book great. It's the characters. And Jack and August are vivid and wonderfully rendered. And these people really came to life for me in all of their complexity, cluelessness, willful blindness, and ultimately human realism. Oh, there were so many terrible decisions that were made, but that's what rendered them all the more human and all the more real, in my opinion. What I also liked about this novel is its lack of a clad-tight, simple, happy ending. With the way these two characters were developed, it would have not only been unreal for them to skip off into the sunlight at the end of the story, it would have been a disservice to all Jack and August had been through, dealt with, and accomplished. Now, that being said, the story did end with a satisfying conclusion that felt perfect to me. So, cons, what I didn't like. You know what? Really, there's not too much that I didn't like about this book, except for the fact that it will hurt your heart in places. But that's the purpose of the book, I think. I don't think this book was intended to invoke positive emotions and unbridled joy, so the dark subject matter here might not be for everyone. There are plenty of triggers in this book, so sensitive readers, be warned. This is the kind of book that will break you in places. Another con is that initially the short snippets and sometimes non-linear storytelling felt a little bit disjointed to me, as it took a bit of getting used to. But once I got the hang of it, it really was fine. I had no problems immersing myself into the story. Also, though the characters of Jack and August were extremely and meticulously well developed, we are only giving bits and pieces about the other characters in the book. You know, I wouldn't have minded knowing a little bit more about Roger and Peter, the twins, who repeatedly offered their assistance to Jack and August, though it was never accepted, as well as the other characters, Gordy and Rena. So the final verdict. Though this was an eerie and haunting read that was at times disturbing and cringeworthy, it is also poignant and beautiful, and is very much also about friendship and unconditional love. It was one of those addicting reads that I just couldn't put down. It was dark, weird, looming, heart-wrenching, and utterly bewitching, and I loved every single moment of this book. I'm really, really glad that I came across The Wicker King, and I ended up giving it 5 stars. Now, by the way, there is an accompanying novella to this story. It was entitled The Legend of the Golden Raven, I think. And it's a novel of the Wicker King, which I just picked up, actually. I got it in Kindle format, but I haven't had the opportunity to read it yet. But I definitely will be reading it because I love this book so much. So just to let you know, and that is it for the review of The Wicker King. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I will talk to you in the next video. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.